Hello and what's up, everybody? Welcome to this special edition of the BREWtally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John. I am alone for this coronavirus episode. In the week or so that we have been all dealing with this coronavirus pandemic, I have seen an industry that I love just basically be decimated. Tours being canceled left and right. Friends that I've known for many years basically out of jobs, losing lots of money, and having no real idea of when their jobs will come back. And as somebody who does a podcast where I talk to musicians, I just kind of kept thinking about what I could do in this time. A lot of people have been laid off in normal life as well, quote unquote normal life, and I'm starting to see people freaking out, not knowing how they're going to survive, and on top of that, they're also getting bored. And so I was just trying to think of something that I could do where I could kind of give people in the industry, in the music industry, a voice to kind of talk about what they're going through, how they've been handling this, some things they might have learned as a result, and just kind of offering something to kind of not necessarily take your mind off it, because we talk a lot about it, but basically to just kind of see a different perspective of things. Maybe you don't know how band people have been dealing with this personally. Maybe you aren't aware of the people who are in the touring industry, in the behind-the-scenes roles of touring, and even from a publicist perspective, who now, in talking to Amy, she is doing a lot more work, it seems. She's actually found that she's doing more as a result of this. So basically, I reached out to 4 different people. I reached out to JB from August Burns Red. We had already done a conversation the day before. Basically, their whole tour got canceled with Killswitch Engage. And long and short of it, I figured he was kind of the one to start this whole thing. My friend Frank Finelli, who had been on the podcast a couple of times before, started a GoFundMe, and just seemed like a thing I wanted to help raise awareness of. And then, as I said, Amy, who owns and runs Adam Splitter PR, I deal with her every day, basically, between emails and so forth, and just kind of thinking about how this has affected her, because now everybody is stationary for the most part and probably has a ton of time to do press, which is a good way to still keep bands' names and brands vibrant and out there in this interesting time that we're existing right now. And then lastly, as kind of had done everything, and you'll hear me say this, the Acacia Strain basically was one of the last bands that just kept forging on in light of all the different situations they found themselves in, of how many people you could play in front of, and starting out on the West Coast and basically having to make their way all the way back east, and just basically riding the thing until the wheels fell off, until they could not tour anymore because of having nowhere to play. The thing that I loved about all this is just the overwhelming sense of positivity that kept everyone going and has kept everyone going, and I think that's the message that I want to portray through all this. So without really further ado, this is a really long episode by our standards, but it's 4 different chats that are about 25-30 minutes each. I'm not going to do any plugs or anything like that. If you want to follow any of these people, everything's in the show notes. In the link, you'll see the link to the GoFundMe for the touring people who have lost their incomes based on all these tours being postponed and canceled. If you have some extra money, please donate to that. It'll all go back to these people who have no jobs, have no money. So support an industry that basically needs your help right now. Anything else, like I said, all the links will be in the show notes. Follow all these people. Thanks again to JB, to Frank, to Amy, and to Tom for taking the time to do this in a very, very short amount of time and being so open and honest with everything. So without further ado, this is my conversations. We'll talk to you guys later. So I have the pleasure of talking to JB Brubaker of August Burns Red again. Except now I think we're practicing our social distances thing, limitations, or whatever the hell that thing's called now.
Yeah. We're on full lockdown here at the Brubaker residence.
Yeah, actually, because you guys are in Pennsylvania, which I just saw is on full-on lockdown now, isn't it?
Yes, and I'm wondering when the rest of the nation will follow suit, because if there are patterns to be found here, it's that these things have been sort of snowballing.
Yeah.
So I kind of just assume this is going to be how it is everywhere in a couple days.
Yeah, I would imagine. So interestingly enough, JB and I did a conversation when he was here in Grand Rapids on the second date of the Killswitch and August Burns Red spring tour, and then a funny thing happened that I think all of us thought was maybe not as big of a deal as it was, and then turned out to be a really big deal. That's kind of the interesting thing about the 24-hour news cycle we live in now is, there's possible overreactions to things because people are able to just spread misinformation so fast. But then as we come to find out, things are more serious than we may have let on. And what was interesting is in our initial talk, which we cut out, there was, I don't want to call it arrogance. There just very much is like I was saying is misinformation. We just didn't know. I think it doesn't help that our president hasn't really steered us in the right direction either, by some of the misinformation he's been spreading the last handful of days. But all of that aside, wherever your political beliefs lie or any of that kind of stuff, I wanted to kind of talk more about how this has affected the music industry. It's a pretty big part of my life. Obviously, it's a huge part of JB's. I have a lot of friends in the industry between actually being in bands, publicists, sound people, merch people, the whole gamut of the music industry, basically. I know people in and have seen how this has affected them all from different facets. JB was gracious enough to come back on to kind of talk a little bit about how it has affected him, and more so just him. I'm not going to have him speak wholly for his band, but this is unprecedented, what we're kind of going through. I can't think of a time where the music industry has, the whole world really, but I'm just focusing on the music industry, has completely shut down like this. Care to elaborate? Is there any time you can think of that's been this bad worldwide?
No, of course not. I mean, I was talking to my in-laws recently, and they have never seen anything like this in their lives, and they're, pushing 70. We're in uncharted territory right now. Everyone is, and it's scary. And I definitely I'm like taking everything a lot more seriously than I was even a week ago.
Isn't it weird that it's only been a week? I just saw, I think my cousin posted Throwback Thursday, and it was to like fully stocked shelves of toilet paper and shit. And I was like, no, that was only a week ago. Wow. It feels like so much more time has passed.
And I was saying to my wife today at dinner, like the scary thing isn't, or we're all, scared of being contained and everything and having to go into quarantine, but you don't realize how much freedom we have until something like this happens. This has like really changed my perspective on a lot of things that I take for granted day to day. Just being able to shake my neighbor's hand if I see him outside, or, there's things like that. I mean, everything is so different and it happens so fast. And boy, I don't know when this is going to end. And it is scary. I don't know when I'm going to work again. I don't know when I'm going to play my next show.
So I kind of want to go back a little bit and go back to that date in Grand Rapids, because at that point when we had talked, I know I had told you, because I had about an hour gap between when I finished my conversation with Justin to you, and just the difference of an hour as far as the information that was coming to you guys was pretty astounding. It went from just kind of, I hear the, Seattle, might be canceled, or they're I think at the time that Justin and I were talking, it was limited to 1,000, no more than 1,000 people. By the time you and I were talking, it then was already limited to no more than groups of 250. And your Seattle date had already been canceled because of that. So kind of let's pick up from when you and I finished our chat. What was kind of the behind the scenes kind of vibe going on? Because I assume, with all the green rooms and such being so close to one another, that inevitably the whole tour was probably talking about this.
Yeah, and we we started the tour talking about it at the first show in Cleveland, and it was literally the only thing we talked about the entire time we were out. Like, it was sickening how much we all talked about it. And it was just such a big deal that we couldn't help it. And it's still kind of all that I talk about. My wife and I talk about it constantly. And it's the conversation in all the group chats that I'm in. It's all, everything is COVID-19 and coronavirus. But we quickly began to see, especially that day in Grand Rapids, the writing on the wall. You know, this tour was definitely going away. And the following day, we played a show in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah,
it was a side show. The tour was off that day, but we had booked a side show, and that would have been that was our last show of the tour that night. And I remember talking with our booking agent, Dave Shapiro, and he, you know, we were like, "What's going to happen? Do you know?" And he's like, "Well, I'll let you know. There's a call with Live Nation and AEG happening in like 5 minutes. We'll find out what's happening." And, you know, an hour later, he's like, "Yep, we're postponing this. Everything's getting shut down. Like they're stopping all their tours." And we're just like, "Oh God." But, you know, that feels like it was a long time ago now, because since then it's now don't go anywhere in groups of more than 10. And to the point where now we are here in Pennsylvania on total lockdown, except for essential businesses. So, wow, it's snowballed quickly. And I got to say, I'm thankful that states are starting to lock everything down, because what I'm afraid is going to happen is this is just going to trickle on and on into the summer, and who knows how long after that. And we're all just going to be stuck under quarantine for months if we don't just shut it down now. So I like that we're really taking extreme measures in hopes that we can still do our summer tours and have fun this summer as a nation, or as a world, really. There's missing the entire spring sucks, but missing the entire spring and summer and who knows what else sucks a lot more. So I'm glad we're trying to nip it in the bud, if that's even possible at this point.
So, out of curiosity, I know, like, it's kind of hard to really say this, maybe, but was anyone on the tour, or I guess more specifically to you and your band and guys, were you guys approaching any of your setup precautions in the first couple of days of the tour? Was there anything you guys were doing differently at all, or even thinking about, like, just being cognizant of, you know, just germs or touching things in general?
I think we were washing hands like crazy. That was happening across the whole tour. I wasn't touching bathroom doors. You know, I would put my sleeve up over my hand to push a door open or use a knob, things like that. And it's funny because when we were doing pre-production for this tour, just maybe 48 hours earlier, like, it wasn't even a thought. I wasn't even thinking about any of this. We were just thinking about, get the show together. Let's go play our songs and do the best we can and have a great tour. Like, I mean, like I've been saying, like you've been saying, it all just happened so quickly.
Yeah. I just didn't know, like, with it being kind of omnipresent in the beginning, if you were even aware of things that you had changed about your day-to-day routines or habits that maybe would have changed, even just kind of subconsciously maybe. But, you know, a different thing, and, you know, I know Amy had kind of told me this in leading up to you and I chatting initially, and I know from looking at your socials, so I mean, this is common knowledge, but that, you know, your kid was out during the pre-production day. When all of this started going on and you're obviously not home, what does that look like in communicating with your wife, with your family, like people who are probably already concerned about you being out as it is? What does that look like from that facet?
Well, my wife suffers from a chronic illness and has to do an immunosuppressant biologic drug. She takes injections for her chronic illness, and so she's one of the high risk people, which she's been sick her whole life and takes these sorts of things very seriously, because getting sick for her is much worse than, you know, getting sick for me. And my son was unfortunately recently diagnosed with asthma. It basically, he has trouble breathing if he gets a cold. His lungs, you know, get real junky, and it's a mess. So anyways, not that the coronavirus has been, it doesn't seem to be affecting children as badly, but still, my wife and I definitely want to keep our son healthy during this time, especially don't want him to get the coronavirus, because God knows what's going to happen to him with him having trouble breathing with a common cold, you know?
Right.
So Kate's my wife. She was like advocating for, like, let's shut it down well before it was cool. You know what I mean? Well before I thought it was like the thing to do. So she was on the cutting edge of taking the precautions. And, I know it was frustrating for her to watch a lot of people make jokes out of it and not take it seriously. And now here we are. I think everyone now understands the gravity of what we're dealing with.
Take me to kind of, you find out the tour is canceled. You're in Louisville. What is kind of going through all of the collective, thoughts of you guys? Like, because like I said, having so many people in the industry, seeing the trickle down of, people like South by Southwest got canceled, and I saw people going like, man, I just lost out on like $10,000. And, just seeing the dollar amount of people saying like, I just lost this tour and this other tour, and that was gonna, set me up for, that was half my year's, income that I just lost, or things like that.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's wild to kind of think like that, because I think for a lot of people who aren't in this industry, you kind of make your money, working hourly wages and so forth, like myself, and, you kind of plan on, this is what I make because this is how many hours I work and so forth. And, the music industry is different, because you kind of, between your per diems, your guarantees and so forth, you get paid a lot differently than we do, or the average person. So when this tour kind of goes away, I know when we were talking initially, you were like, well, as of right now, this accounts for about half of our touring income at this point. And so for it to be postponed, is there kind of a sense of, oh man, like what am I going to do? Or how is this going to affect me and my livelihood right now?
Yeah, it's a little scary because we took 3 months off before this. We had toured a lot last year, and we knew what our schedule was going to be for 2020. So we blocked off this big chunk of time in the winter, and I've been home for 3 months without income. And like you just said, this tour was going to be about half my income for the year. And now I'm going to be off for at least 7 months. We have a tour in Europe in June. If that even happens, who knows at this point?
Right.
But that's 7 months where we're just going to kind of be floating along and watching the old bank account decrease. And hopefully it doesn't turn into a bunch of credit card debt and stuff. I mean, I saved money knowing I was going to be off for 3 months. Right. I didn't save money knowing I was going to be off for 7 months.
Right. So,
yeah, I mean, it's stressful, and it's like you said as well, it trickles down. We have seven guys on our crew that tour with us who also count on this money, and they're out of work. And some of the guys work at venues when they're at home. They work as like house guys for clubs and theaters at home, and no shows are coming through there, so they have no work, period.
Yeah.
Which is scary. And I know our sound engineer just bought a house towards the end of last year, which is, it kind of took the plunge with his fiance. And he's like, oh shit, dude, how am I going to pay my mortgage? I cannot even work local shows. And yeah, I don't know. It's going to be very tricky from a financial point of view. And I know it's not just the music industry. It's a lot of people affected by it. Yeah. So sign that stimulus package already.
Something that was kind of interesting to me in all of this too is, I don't want to say they were the first band to do this. Obviously they're not the first band to do this, but they're the first band to have done this since all this happened, which is Code Orange doing their live stream in an empty venue. And I don't know if you caught it. I kind of felt like it was a little bit of history being made, so I kind of felt like I needed to see it. And it was interesting. Sounded great, looked great, but it's weird not seeing a crowd going apeshit during a Code Orange show. It just is what it is.
Right. And very weird.
They had a bunch of far back, wide shots so you could see the full venue empty, and it was like, that's weird. It gave it a very weird, sterile feeling to it that I didn't really appreciate, being someone that loves going to their shows and just kind of being immersed in people. Obviously, since then, at this point now, I think Dropkick just did one yesterday or the day before. There's plans of other bands doing it. I actually just saw on Instagram, I don't know if it was a sponsored ad or not, somebody's trying to do a digital concert festival where it's like a week's worth of like bands playing online, so at least people can see bands playing. And I would assume there's probably a donation page or something that goes along with that. But when you see something like that, does that at least kind of get the gears going of like maybe there's something else that we can do currently to try to make the best of this and at least kind of do something a little different?
Yes and no. I totally get why people and bands would want to do these live streams. I don't think that's something that I see ABR doing right now because we're literally quarantined. Like I'm not even going to go see my other bandmates. Like I don't know who they've been interacting with, and I'm not risking it. I'm not risking bringing that into my house when I come home.
Right. So
it's literally not something I'm even looking into as an option right now. But I understand why people are doing it. And my wife and I just bought tickets to watch one of our favorite singer-songwriters, Matt Pond, play on Saturday. So he's doing like a living room concert. So we're going to have a little stay-at-home date night after we put our son to bed and watch Matt Pond play in his living room. So I'm glad. I'm really happy that artists are doing this for the sake of all of our entertainment. I unfortunately don't foresee August Burns Red getting together right now, and given the current state of affairs and doing it ourselves. But who knows where we'll be in 6 weeks, you know?
Something that I kind of saw yesterday as well that I thought was interesting was I know Mark from Nothing More posted a photo of him and the rest of the guys, because they're currently working on a record, having to Skype in with each other to kind of work on this record, because they, again, can't go to a studio, you know, all these kind of things. Like you said, everything's shut down. So they're trying to find creative ways of moving forward as a band. And I know you had kind of said earlier that you were talking about, like, you know, you're going to take advantage of this time and write something.
Mm-hmm.
What does that, I mean, obviously I know from listening to a bunch of interviews like that you and Dustin basically bring a lot of like full song ideas to the band. So are you just kind of like really inspired now that you got some extra downtime to just create something and make this time not valuable but to make your downtime worth it in some capacity?
I got to say that I do feel inspired. I haven't written in a long time because we finished writing our record back in the summer. So I've been off of that kind of creative mindset for many months already. And now that I do have the time, I'm taking the mornings every day and spending a few hours just working on stuff. And it's fun. Like I enjoy it. And it makes me feel productive when there's not a whole lot else that I could be doing. It's nice to know that I can still, a huge part of what we do is write music, and I can still do that from home. Nothing's changed in that regard. So I view this as an opportunity to be productive and try to write some cool shit.
Do you think that, like I saw Devin Townsend already has his quarantine sessions or whatever that he's putting out, sporadic, or at least a song. Do you envision kind of putting out like an EP or something, or do you just plan on this being the foundation of what will probably be ideas for whatever the next August Burns Red record or release will be?
I don't think what I'm working on now will be for the next August Burns Red full length. Yeah, I see it more as EP kind of stuff. And I'd say the same for Dustin, although he's working on stuff that I think is more in line with like proper August Burns Red songs, where I'm kind of working on more of like cover kind of stuff, I guess, right now.
Oh, okay. What does one cover during this other than REM?
Well, yeah, no kidding.
Actually, I just saw that made it back into the top, I think, 100 at least on Billboard, that song or whatever.
Wow.
For the first time in like 30 years.
Good for REM.
Yeah.
That song just keeps on raking the money in. I've been working on a cover of the Westworld theme song. Oh, okay. And I'm a big fan of that show, and I kind of started on one a long time ago. And I was like, well, I got some time. I want to like really dig into this now. And I'm spending a lot of time on it, and I enjoy, I like doing like metal covers of instrumental music, I guess. So I don't know exactly what will come of it, but I'm excited with what I've got so far, and I'd love to record it and release it at some point. But I plan on doing, like, we do Christmas songs and stuff. I'll probably work on some Christmas material and who knows what else. But there's some things I'd like to accomplish before I get into writing like more proper songs, like stuff for another record. There's some little one-off kind of things I'd like to do first.
Amongst all of this, what has this This sounds like such a stupid question too, so I apologize. What has going through this taught you in the last week or so?
That's a good question. It's taught me to probably trust my wife's instinct on things because she is a lot more careful than I am, and oftentimes she's right. So I need to, and I kind of am guilty of having that whole invincibility feeling, like I'm young and healthy, and I just feel like nothing can hurt me, and that's just a really illogical approach to take. And I pride myself in being a very logical, rational person, and I think that that's a flaw of mine that has been exposed during this time. So that's definitely something I've learned, and I think I've learned to not take what I do for granted, because I've been able to tour when we want to tour for the last 15 plus years. And I've never experienced anything like this before. And it makes me appreciate what I have with August Burns Red, what we all have collectively as a band, and appreciate it. And it also makes me appreciate simple things like having food to eat and
yeah,
just the basics of life, and to be able to afford to buy food, because there's people that can't, and they don't have work, and the shelves are empty in a lot of places, and that's scary. So I said to my wife today, as I was like cleaning up my son's scraps at dinner, I'm like, I'm not leaving any food uneaten during this time. Like, I'm eating everything because I don't want to waste anything, because I'm not saying I think that we're going to run out of food as a nation or anything. I sincerely hope that doesn't happen, but I also understand that it's more difficult than it's ever been to go out and buy groceries. So yeah.
Well, I don't really have too much else to ask you. I think we kind of covered the gamut of what I really wanted to do with this, which is a really kind of concise, kind of talking about it, right before it happened, kind of as it was happening, and then after the fact, and kind of how it's affected you, which I didn't know the thing about your wife, so that actually is pretty interesting to me to go through, because thankfully I don't have to go through that myself or with my wife. Yeah. But we had to send a doctor's ordered. Actually, a doctor called our work, and the kid that we have working in our department I think he had a full-on heart replacement when he was a kid. So he straight up just can't be around any of this. So they were like, you gotta go home, quarantine yourself, dude, like go. So that was kind of like when it really kind of hit home for me, like where I started thinking about people in that position. That's why, I've been over the last couple of days just kind of thinking about like, what has this taught me? And I know it's kind of like I said, it sounds stupid when you kind of say it because it's so broad and not really descript, but I think, everyone kind of has learned something over this last week of going through all this. So, it was kind of interesting just kind of to get someone else's perspective on this, which I think is also, been interesting about this is kind of seeing how this has affected everyone in different ways and what they are going through, and kind of not making it solely about yourself, especially when you're not really able to hang out with anyone anymore. Right.
This has also taught me or shown me, I guess, how selfish young people can be, myself included. But like, a lot of people weren't like worried at all because, oh, I'm young, I'm healthy, this isn't going to bother me. But it's our parents and our grandparents that we need to be concerned about. And that's why we need to take it seriously for their sake,
Right. Yeah. I guess where can everyone find you or the band? Which, I mean, I don't know how active everyone's going to be on social media at this point, since that's about the only way they're able to interact with each other. But
oh yeah, everyone's been super active. The band's at August Burns Red on Instagram and on Twitter, and I'm on Twitter at JB Brubaker, my name, and on Instagram at JB Burns Red. I'm trying to post like guitar playthrough videos and stuff during this downtime, just to throw some content out at the world, since we're all bored and spending even more time on our phones than usual.
Right. Well, thank you very much for agreeing to come back and do this again. Definitely wish it were under different circumstances that we were doing a part 2, but like I said, I just kind of had this idea that I wanted to talk to a handful of different people throughout the facet of the music industry. And, with you and I having literally kind of gone through the beginning of this together, I was like, it just seems to make sense that it should be you that I talk to about this from a band's perspective, because I think you guys were one of the few bands that had actually started a tour that everyone was so amped on, and then it was just like, nope, it's done.
Right. Unfortunate timing.
Yeah.
But, well, cool, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I was happy to talk to you about it, and hopefully we can speak again on better terms in the not so distant future.
Well, I'll put it out this way. Maybe if this keeps going on longer and your record actually comes out and you're still not able to tour and we're all under quarantine, maybe we should all get together and just kind of do a fun like track by track rundown of the new Guardians.
Sure.
Because I mean that's always cool. Fun to just kind of like, oh, this started off as a demo and we were doing this and then so did something and I rearranged this and whatever. I
totally
always think those are fun. I don't know if that's a plan for something anyway, but idea I've already had.
Yeah, we're into that kind of stuff for sure. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep in touch and thanks again, and hopefully we'll be talking soon, maybe in person when you're back on tour.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, thanks, John. Talk to you later, man.
So I'm sitting in my safety quarantine level away from Frank Finelli again.
Don't ever come near me.
Well, I can't ever give you boob cakes if I can't ever get near you ever again, or Shirley Temples. But so basically, this is going to be, as I'm recording this is basically the second part of what I've been doing, trying to make sense of, this pandemic that we're going through with the coronavirus, and how it just has decimated really every living situation, but more focused on music, since that's A, what this podcast is based on, B, that's what I have so many friends involved in, is the touring industry, and to just see how it has completely crippled the music industry has been just staggering. I know I said it in my conversation with JB. I know you and I have privately texted and talked about this, that it's just astounding. This is unprecedented. We've never seen this in the music industry ever. And so I kind of wanted to have people on that are in various facets of the music industry. And you were the first person I kind of had thought of to talk about it, from the kind of behind the scenes, being a merch person, TM, lighting person. You wear many hats, so you can kind of speak to how this affects everybody. And lo and behold, here you come out, a day or two after I had this idea, and you had a way better idea, which was to put into action a GoFundMe to basically try to raise funds for people in the industry like yourself who are suddenly out of money that they were banking on right before all this happened. So I'll kind of pose the same question I did to JB. Kind of walk me through, because you weren't on tour when this happened yet. You were just finishing a tour?
So I just finished 2 months of tour with Pennywise straight into Earth Gang. And I already did a little bit of pre-production for Black Veil Brides, which is my next thing. That was supposed to be the next 4 months of my life, all over the world. And then we went to Mexico. We did one show in Mexico, and I was supposed to fly right back after like a 2 or 3 day break to do more pre-production for a tour that we were supposed to do within this moment. And that never happened.
So what was were you hearing any rumblings of this happening as you were finishing or even starting like the pre-pro for the Black Veil Brides thing? Was there any, because you were out in, I think, LA, right, when you were doing that?
Yeah.
Okay. So at that point, you're kind of in one of the major cities that kind of got hit pretty hard with this pretty quickly. Were you kind of hearing of any of this while you were out there, or what was kind of the vibe surrounding this when you kind of first heard about it?
It was pretty tame. None of us cared that much until we heard that like everybody was buying up everything of sanitizer and like those face masks that everybody's wearing, before anybody knew that that's like it just almost doesn't matter if you have them or not. So then we were like, well, we're about to go to Mexico. We're about to get on flights. What do we do? So we bought a bunch of black gloves to just have on our hands at all times while we were over there, and like flying in the airplanes and whatnot. And that was our way of dealing with it right away. But it didn't really start to kick off big time until we got back from Mexico and we were just waiting for the pre-production to start for the actual main tour.
When this happened, because, like I was saying, and as people will have heard at this point, I was at the Killswitch tour doing media with JB and Justin, and it was, I was kind of interested. I did the one with Justin at 3 p.m., and it was, Seattle just went from being able to stay open for or to have venues open of 1,000 people or more or less, to then an hour and a half later when I talked to JB, it was now there can't be any gatherings of people 250 or below, and Seattle's already canceled. And that's just in a matter of an hour and a half. To then, I guess, like by the next day, so 24 hours after that, whole tour is shut down.
Yeah.
To see the spreading of information like that, and I know your tour, like I think yesterday or the day before, as of when we're recording, officially has been postponed. Kind of, what was your experience like? Kind of dealing with the emails, dealing with the severity of this as it's kind of unfolding in real time.
So I'll sort of get into the story of the fundraiser that I put on as I'm telling you what you just asked me, or answering the question you just asked me. What day is it? Thursday?
Yeah, today's Thursday, the 19th.
So this all started 1 week ago exactly, with me. Like, not the whole epidemic, just with us finding out this tour was no longer happening. It's the same day that Live Nation came out with a statement that said that all tours were basically canceled under their wing, because our tour is basically one of those kind of tours. So I got a phone call in the early afternoon that basically said that everything's going to be postponed until further notice. Obviously, there's something going on right now. It's all going haywire. So I said, okay, well, what can I do about it? And at that point, we were already seeing a whole bunch of festivals being canceled. So we were just like kind of waiting for, like, the writing was on the wall kind of situation. So I was really depressed about it for the next 2 days, or at least day and a half, because you know me, you and I have been friends for a while. That's all I do. I don't do anything else. I tour, and that's it. Not only do I like making money because that's my job, but I also just like being away. I like traveling. I like being with my friends. I like schedules. That's dumb, but I like scheduling, and like every day on tour is a schedule. This is what I do. That's all I do for 9 to 11 months out of a year, every single year. And I've been doing that for 14 some odd years. So I was really depressed right away. However, I jumped in the shower on Friday afternoon, and I had a crazy idea of doing this fundraiser, but in like a me kind of way, where I made a stupid shirt with a face on it a couple of years ago, and people called me the merch daddy because I do a lot of merch jobs and whatnot. And I sold out of those real quick, and I thought to myself, like, and this is all while I'm in the shower doing my heavy thinking. I was just like, I could probably sell a couple of funny designs, like not the same one as I did a couple of years ago. I probably just sell a couple of funny designs relating to this situation, and I could at least like help pay my bills for the next couple of months, even though I'm all right. I'm not hurting. And then the more I sat there just in the shower, I was like, well, you know what? If nobody's doing this right now, which nobody was that I saw anyway, because I spent the 2 days of that time being depressed on Twitter and Facebook like an idiot. I was like, nobody's doing this shit right now. I was like, I don't know if the government is trying to, but we're not the first ones they're going to look after. And when I say that, I mean touring crews, not musicians. The musicians have their fans. The crews we don't have people listening to songs that are ours, that we make money off of. People aren't buying our merch because that doesn't exist. That's not what we're there for. I was like, nobody's looking out for us. Like, I'm going to do this to where, yeah, maybe I could pay a little bit of myself back for like 4 months of tour loss, but that's not the point. If this gets big enough, I could help a lot of my friends that I know for sure no longer have jobs. And here we are 3 days later, or whatever it is. Actually, no, I waited a day or two to compile some data before I launched it. But here we are a couple of days later, and we've raised over $16,000 so far for people of the touring industry that work behind the scenes who no longer have jobs touring, because all the tours on the planet, and that's a crazy thing to say, but all the tours on the planet are no longer happening. So that's where we're at right now. $16,000 in a few days we've raised for other people. And we're going to split that as evenly as possible, if not straight down the middle, with anybody who has contacted me so far, along with the list that I curated with my personal friends that I know for sure are hurting because they no longer have jobs. So far so good.
What has been, and I'm totally setting you up, what has been the biggest obstacle when you set this up?
I thought it was going to be reaching enough people to where this would really take off. And so far that I ate my words on that, because a a lot of eyes have seen this so far, and that's really, really cool. I don't understand how, and maybe they just don't pay attention, but I don't understand how famous people do this, because my socials have been literally bombarded like crazy the past couple of days, and it's almost overwhelming, because we're trying to collect all the information from the people that need help, and we're trying to thank everybody. I'm trying to talk to everybody and kind of help them spread the word or whatever, but it's just wild. So I think now the biggest challenge is, how do we get donations to be larger or more of them versus the people who need the help? Because right now I could pay, let's just say there's 100 people or so, maybe a little bit more, who've already emailed us being like, yo, this is the deal. This is my proof that my tour was canceled. This is the artist and the contact that you can hit up that tells you that I was hired. My tour is no longer happening, whatever. There's a lot of those. Let's say there's 100. Right now at $16,000, I could pay everybody $100 or whatever the price would be. I'm not doing the math in my head right now, but I could pay everybody $120 right now out of the list that has already hit me up. And that's great. But how do we really make the impact to where I can seriously help these people chip away at some debt? And I'm not helping myself anymore. I'm doing this because I'm going to be bored out of my fucking mind if I don't do anything at all during my downtime. I'm okay for the next couple of months. I have a savings. I'm trying to really help people that don't have the ability to pay the bills at this moment. And I want to be able to help better. Right now I am helping, and I'm aware that I'm helping, but I want to be able to help more and better. So I'm trying to reach people now that are really going to be able to hit that high profile set of eyes. It's like, you know what, they're right. And I can afford this. And maybe they do donate $1,000, whatever. Just that's the new goal, is how do I reach a platform where I can make this really flourish to help more people excessively. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Something that I thought was interesting, and I don't really know if you've actually explained what the fuck happened, but I felt like you were getting so much literally great publicity for this, with Kerrang picking it up, with Metal Injection picking it up. I know Amy at Atom Splitter, I got an email about it. I know she shared it on the podcast, or shared it on her publicity companies, socials, and so forth. And you were making really great headway.
Oh, I didn't see that. Where's that at?
I'll have to show you after the fact. I know I got an email about it from Atom Splitter, PR.
Sure.
But it was one of those things, like, when I'm starting to see other people in the industry starting to share this, other outlets starting to share this, I was like, holy shit, like, this groundswell is starting to gain some momentum. And then it just seemed like, just as all the feel-good feelings are happening, something fucking happened, and then it just went away. What happened? Did you ever find out why it got taken down?
Oh, so yeah, I didn't even mention that. I try to put that out of my mind because I was so unbelievably depressed. I can't even tell you, because the first day was such a whirlwind. It got big real fast, and I didn't know how to process it. It was like, it's like something of mine, quote unquote, went viral. It didn't. It just got semi-popular pretty quickly. But in my brain, I've never felt that before. There was nothing I've ever done has gone viral, or a lot of people posted, like a lot of people posted about it. Even when I was in the band, we were busy, and people would always post our songs and stuff like this, but never like this. Like, I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people contact me on the first day. And it was very, very crazy. And I think we did 12,000 first day or something like that.
Yeah, roughly.
Whatever. Yeah. So the second day I woke up and I got to work on replying to a bunch of people just saying thank you and whatnot, and literally out of nowhere. And I don't think I've even talked about this yet, because I've done a couple of these just today. Out of nowhere, I got an email that said, your account is suspended. We're reviewing it from GoFundMe. And I can't tell you the joy that I felt for 24 hours, like the unbelievable joy that I felt for that long, being like, wow, this is working. And then literally the second I saw that email, I felt like I got hit by a truck. I was so fucking upset to where I panicked. Like, I almost had a panic attack, because people were starting to hit me up being like, yo, this isn't working anymore. Like, what happened? And I'm like trying to figure out, like, okay, who can I get a hold of? I replied to the email, of course, from GoFundMe, but I had a fucking panic attack, and I briefly broke down. I'm not going to say that I like had a full-on crying fit or whatever, but I broke down. I was very upset. And then I just had to sit there and wait for a response from GoFundMe on what I did wrong, how I could fix it, or anything like that. And it took a full 24 hours, just like they said it would. And the next morning, I woke up. I was literally still in my bed, and I saw an email that said, "Oh yeah, we reviewed it. You're fine." And they just put it back. To say, like, I would assume, like, I want to think that it didn't hurt us, but it hurt. It had to have hurt.
Yeah.
How could it not?
Yeah.
It's a long time to have something go off pretty hard and then not go off anymore because it doesn't exist.
Well, that was kind of what I was alluding to when I said I was setting you up for, like, what was the biggest struggle so far with this, or obstacle, because, like I said...
I totally put it out of my mind.
No, it's totally fine. I would have too, but it's one of those things where, in thinking about that, it's like you're gaining so much positivity, and like I said, you were just gaining so much momentum so quickly, and I don't want to say it derailed it, but I definitely saw comments on some of the pages that were sharing it, and they were like, and, I just saw comments like, link doesn't work, or whatever, and then it's like, fuck, man, like, because the unfortunate thing, and like I've learned this when stuff from, my podcast ends up on news sites or whatever, you get that really good, like, day or so of momentum of, like, downloads and people clicking the links and so forth, and then after that, it just kind of turns into a slowdown of, yeah, okay, now it's already gone past its life expectancy at this point. And, like, when I started seeing that happening, I was like, oh, no, like, this is so shitty. Like, I mean, I'm sure they're going to... I was wondering if I would see, like, not a retraction, but basically in addition to the story where it's like, hey, just, we posted this story in case you missed it. The link wasn't working for whatever reason. It's back up now. And then getting, another fresh set of eyes on the thing. I haven't seen that personally, but it was just one of those things where I was kind of like, oh, man, that fucking sucks so bad.
It didn't help. To put it absolutely plainly, it didn't help. I would say, and I could be totally wrong, I think we would be over 20,000 already if it wasn't for that second day.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, look, what can I do? Since then, we've gained around $4,000 worth of donations. So, I mean, it's not dead by any means. Just today alone, we've hit over $1,000 in donations, and we're on the third. I mean, I don't count that second day as even being a day because it was dead, but this is technically the third full day it's been alive, and we've done over $1,000 today. I've said this a couple of times, not in this conversation, but I have yet to text a single person that hasn't already texted me about this. On top of that, I have yet to send a single email to a human that I know outside of a couple of press people. So I've yet to do that. I will do it. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I don't really know yet. I'm still kind of trying to get a hold of everybody to say thank you and all that kind of crap. I need to get to that level where somebody, a big time player in our game, in our industry, thinks this is a cool idea. And I don't know how to do that. I think I'm going to hit up some managers, maybe, see who I can get on board. But that's my new goal, because I can talk about this while I'm blue in the face and hit up everybody, but it doesn't mean that we're going to get to a spot where we could actually really do some damage to the potential debt that everybody's in right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think someone like Kevin Lyman might be a good person to reach out to. He always seems to do good with bringing a lot of awareness to different causes.
Kevin and I spoke the other day. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I really don't know. Maybe he knows somebody over there, but he was CC'd on the email with GoFundMe when I was trying to get this back. And I don't know if I don't know if he did anything behind the scenes, but when him and I talked on the phone about it, he's like, just put me in the email and tell him that we could do such and such. I'm not going to get into those details, but I love that dude regardless of whether he did help or didn't help, or whether maybe they just knew his name or the company. Whatever. That dude's a great guy, and he deserves all the praise that he gets for everything that he does. And that's without me knowing whether he had anything to do with this whatsoever. But Kevin and I have talked. Yes.
Fair enough. I mean, like I said, he does a lot of great charitable work and has done over the many 25 years of Warped Tour. So, and then some. So, like I said, definitely someone I know that probably could help you in some regard getting some of these bigger contacts or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just scared. I hate being. I'm the guy right now that I don't like being. I don't ask anybody for anything if I can help it. You know what I mean? And right now, it's still not for me per se. It's for people of my kind in our industry. But it's not this. None of what I'm doing is benefiting me in a way other than now people think I'm a nice guy or something. You know what I mean? Like, and that's great. I want people to know that I'm a charitable person, but like, I hate asking for, yo, can you tell so-and-so who's clearly a big set of eyes, like, or people have a lot of eyes on them. Can you like get them to post about this, or can you get them to do this, or you, because I work for you or I've worked for you, can you retweet this, or can you donate? Like, I hate being that guy so much. And that's my new, well, I guess I'm doing this.
Kind of as we're wrapping this up, where can people find the link to the GoFundMe, and how long are you keeping it?
All right. So, because I knew this would happen, because it's just like you said before, once the appeal wears off, or whatever you want to call it, it's going to die. I'm ending this at the end of March.
Okay.
Unless by some miracle, somebody, like some celebrity or something, gets 45 of their friends to donate $10,000 to it each. Like, unless some miracle like that happens, I'm ending this at the end of March, and that's it. You can find me on all socials, but specifically, it makes the most sense to hit me up on Instagram and Twitter. Twitter? I just said that like a crazy person. You can find me at Frank TWWK on Instagram, and you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at FG Finelli, which is FGFANELLI. And I'm trying to answer literally everything that comes across. It's probably the most work I've ever done in my life. But all the links are on both of those socials. If you can't find it, you're absolutely blind, because that's all I've been doing the past 3 days. So you can find it. If you're listening to this, literally, the shirt. I probably mentioned the shirt.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, but every $20 that's donated, you're going to get this shirt. We didn't print them because once this ends, they're acting as pre-orders. So once this ends, they're literally being made off of what we got donated to us. Does that make sense? So once it's done, it's done. There will be no more afterwards. This is it. The second we close this thing out, that's it. So you can find the shirts that we're talking about on those links as well. It's me in a ski mask selling toilet paper, hand sanitizer, I think some kind of vitamins or whatever, and paper towels for like an exceedingly high price range in a ski mask. Like I said, it looks crazy. It looks like it's from the black market. It's very, very funny. And on the back of it, there's tour dates, which clearly this tour isn't happening, but there's tour dates with a lot of very interesting phrases pertaining to this moment in time in our lives. That is very, very funny. So the shirt is absolutely worth it. It's hilarious. Just donate $20, you'll get one. But obviously, for reasons to help other people, I would hope you guys donate more so we can help our fellow friends in need.
Absolutely. It's been really inspiring. Once again, I kind of sucked your dick last time you were on the show of just, how much you, hey, you know what? I got plenty of toilet paper over here to take care of that mess. Anyway.
say pull your chain or something.
Nah, man. You suck the dick of something when you are, really all about what the message or something like that. That's kind of the phrase I've always had. But, I think, I've always said that, basically you are a very inspiring person in spite of a lot of the obstacles that you've had to overcome to get as far as you have in an industry that is pretty unforgiving and doesn't give a fuck about who you are or what you've done. The fact that you're going out to do something like this to support an industry that, you love so much and care so much, I think speaks volumes about you as a person first and foremost. And secondly, I think speaks to, why the touring industry is like family, basically, because you look out after your own, even if you're not able to necessarily yourself. You figure out ways to support each other, and I think that's pretty much exactly what this was. When I saw it, I was like, "Holy shit, that makes perfect sense. Why didn't anyone else think to do this?" And
I can't stress enough how much this situation is just like being on a tour full of a good crew. The crew that I have with Black Veil Brides right now is. It's unmatched. Like, everybody is very, very good at what they do. And I would take them into battle. You know what I mean? I would like take them with me to anything that I would need to accomplish. Those are the kinds of people that I'm looking to work for, right, or looking to help right now. It's people like that. This is just like a team on a tour. However, I'm now fighting for my team, and my team are the people that we're getting donations for. That's basically it.
Well, thanks again for taking the time randomly on a Thursday night. I know there's no wrestling, so I know I didn't have to compete with that. And hopefully we will see you out this way, or just in general, all of you collectively who tour in the near future once all this kind of finally boils over, and get back to doing what it is you guys do well, guys and ladies.
I'll come annoy you in Grand Rapids sooner or later.
Well, I think you're due. I've made my trips to you plenty of times at this point.
Yeah. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me, as always. This is what, the third time?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so everybody go listen to the other times I talked about bullshit like the stupid band that I'm in or my clothing company or whatever. So you can do that on a different, you can go listen to me on a different episode about that crap.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, my man.
So I have the pleasure this, late evening, I guess, of talking to Amy Sciarretto of Atom Splitter PR. She is kind of one of the last people I wanted to have on in this coronavirus music industry conversations, because, like I have said habitually through this whole thing, this is something that's near and dear to me. The music industry, music as a whole, is something that is near and dear to all of us. And to see it just be completely wiped out worldwide on this spectrum has not been seen. Not in my lifetime, and most other people's, I would assume, at this point. So we've talked to JB from August Burns Red, so we kind of got a band's perspective. We had Frank Finelli on as well, so we kind of got a behind-the-scenes kind of person as far as merch and tour managing and so forth. And I think another big part of the industry, aside from like booking agents and so forth, is publicists. So I guess kind of walk me through your experience in your realm of how this all started going down for you.
Just in terms of the reaction to what's going on.
So, like with JB, like when he was here in town on that tour, the day before the first date of their tour, there was some talks of it. Actually, I think he was saying that they were even talking about it at pre-production, which I know you were at, and was one of those things where it was basically the talk of the tour, whether they wanted it to be or not. It just was. But something that like JB and I were talking about was how in a matter of 24 hours, it went from being like, I just feel like people are overreacting to this, to 24 hours later, everything's shutting down and you realize the severity of it all. And you're kind of watching it all happen in real time. And, I know at that point, Live Nation and AEG and so forth were kind of getting together and having a meeting to determine how they were going to handle this. But it was one of those things where I know you're probably involved in a lot of these emails too, because you have a lot of clients who are out on the road, getting ready to gear up for tours and album releases and so forth. So just kind of trying to figure out how were you getting the information, and how did it kind of get, filtered to you, and how did it affect you?
Oh, it was like you said, we were talking about it because I had to go out to Lancaster when they were doing pre-production for for an interview that they were doing, and Brent from ABR and JB and I were all talking about, this is, kind of like we were saying how, I hope this doesn't cause the tour to get canceled. And I was like, it's not. I didn't think it was going to, escalate as quickly as it did. And it was literally, that was Monday, and the tour got postponed on Thursday. So it was really, really fast. We started seeing, hearing rumblings of, this tour might get postponed, or this tour might get canceled, or, this tour might get, put on hold. So it was very, very quick. But, it was, like I said, there was rumblings, but then it started, it was like a domino effect. Like this tour got, it was, as soon as one tour got postponed, then it started becoming something that really wasn't even the bands making the decisions. It sounded like it was coming down from like the government, you know what I mean? Because, you can't have gatherings of more than, I think last week it was like, 100 people. Now it's like 55, so I think it was just like a domino effect. And I think a lot of the decisions were really not reached easily because, a lot of bands truly make their, their money on merch and on the road, selling merch and ticket sales, and that's why, you see a lot of bands that bundle their music or download with a shirt and, a ticket to a show. It's because that's where they make their money. So I think it was something that happened really fast because I think a lot of bands and venues and promoters and agents were trying to avoid it because we really thought, okay, this isn't really going to happen, but it did. So it was kind of like, then it was reactionary more than it was, anything else, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And what's kind of interesting as we were kind of going through it, and because I had a couple hours after my last interview with JB to going home and then coming back to the show, as all this is kind of happening, as odd as this is to think of, because I think I was emailing you at the time, like, oh, I just got done with JB, it was really good. Is thinking now in retrospect, thinking about how you're probably still fielding press requests for the tours that are, that tour specifically, and, tours you have coming up, albums that you're releasing. Because, I mean, for those that don't know, a publicist's job is pretty much 24 hours, or anyone really in the music industry, because of just no time zones really existing.
Yeah, really isn't. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Go ahead, sorry.
But it was one of those things, like thinking about how you're probably getting everything from like people from my side of things, like asking you, requesting and so forth. But then you're probably getting just as many emails from managers and so forth about all of this. So like just kind of thinking about how overwhelming it probably was with the information you were getting, like, hey, is this tour going to get canceled? I'm hearing things versus, the people actually coming down like, hey, I think this tour is going to get canceled. I'll let you know soon. And you're kind of caught right in the middle of all of it.
Yeah, because you have to, it's like, I always say this just about the job in general, whether it's, pitching or dealing with a tour being canceled or something going on with an artist. The job is, you're the liaison, where your job is to get information to the media, but also to protect the artist and make sure that the artist is properly represented and or protected, perception-wise or information-wise. So in this case, it was like, we are getting, emails from people asking, hey, is this still happening? Hey, am I still set? Hey, I'm going to pull out I'm not going to go to the show because I have these concerns, these health concerns. So it was like you were dealing with the media asking about the status of the show, and then some people saying, hey, I got to pull out of covering it. And then you're dealing with managers saying, hey, the tour might get postponed. I mean, I was planning to go to we handle all the bands on the bill. August Burns Red, Killswitch, and Light the Torch. So that tour was like really special for us because it was all of our bands, and we're really excited because ABR has a record coming out, and we love seeing them with Killswitch. And I was going to see it that Friday night, and I really needed that show. I just wanted to go because I wanted to see everybody, and I was looking forward to it. And Thursday night, I was getting the rumblings that hey, today's going to be the last. Well, Thursday was when they were going to say, hey, this is the day we're going to let people know. So getting information from all those sources. Already having the agents say, hey, here's when we're trying to reschedule this for. Here's what we're going to do. We have to tell people, should they hold on to their tickets? We have to tell people, are they going to get a refund? So it's all that information in a very short span of time. And, representing both the band and then representing the band's interest to the media is, there's when there's that many questions, it can become very, you want to make sure that the message and the information and the facts don't get lost.
I guess kind of the interesting thing too, as I've kind of thought about the various aspects of the music industry that, I kind of wanted to hit on with this, with what you're doing. Because, like, I think you were actually joking. You're like, oh, my job, actually, I can do it from home because a lot of it is, based through an email and so forth and phone calls. So, like, I can be at home and kind of be quarantined. But I know, like, at this point, like, you have a team and, you guys have been working really well at working together. And I know that, your team probably exists digitally. You probably don't meet a whole lot in person to kind of handle a lot of things, but I do know that you guys do go out quite a bit to see your bands and so forth. And I know you're very I want to say kind of motherly to a lot of the bands. Like you feel it.
No, you can say that. It's like they're my children. Fine.
I was gonna say, it just seems like you're kind of very involved in all the bands that you have, which is something I really enjoy. About you as an individual and someone who does what you do, is that I can tell you like the bands that you have on your roster, and you actually actively go see them and support them. As this is kind of going on as a business owner in the industry, what are kind of some of the things you're thinking of, and how you're gonna have to kind of traverse this pandemic, basically?
Well, a lot, like you were saying, yeah, we do exist digitally, but Mike and Tim and I, we meet at least once a week and work together in a co-working space because, we like to bounce ideas off each other. It's good for us to be in the same room. It's good for us to, to communicate that way. And we like we like being around each other. And a lot of times we'll make sure we work, meet to work the days that we have shows because we're going to go out that night anyway. So yeah, we really, it's very rare that one of our bands is in the New York area and we don't make the show. So, we're there to support them because that's part of the job too. And to be there and to watch the crowd reaction and to see, how, maybe there's something in the live show that we can see that we can use as a pitch angle, stuff like that. So we always, make sure that we're out to see our bands because we do love them and we want to spend time with them. It's good when you're, personally invested too, and spending time with people because you're, on the front lines for them. But, in these past 2 weeks, yes, we have not, we've, work remotely, but we're constantly, we have calls, we are talking in Slack, we're communicating, in GChat, we're constantly in touch, because that's how the machine works. But, in the past week, I didn't notice any reduction in personal or team workflow. Like, we're really busy setting up tons of interviews because we have, bands that have records coming out. We have Trivium has a record coming out. ABR has a record coming out. In This Moment has a record coming out. Trivium, did I say yes? We have a lot of records coming out. So we have to get people the media talking to the bands that we have, not just on tour. Touring, tour press and touring is just part of what we do. We set up so much other stuff. We have to pitch premieres. We have to get the press releases out. We have to get, music service. We have to chase reviews. We have to chase features. We have to, once those interviews are done, we have to make sure they run. We have to get the clip. We have to share the clip. We have to post the clip. We have to get it to the artist, to the manager, to the label. So we're still busy. We're still really super busy because so many media outlets have stepped up and have wanted to be like, hey, what can we do to help people discover music? What can we do to help these bands? So it's been very unifying while we're dealing with what we're dealing with. And I keep trying to tell myself, because I've seen it happen in my experience, is that, this is not this is not going to, this is not the new normal. This is temporary. This is what we're dealing with. It's a situation that, there's a lot of medical minds that work on it. They're going to get it under control, hopefully sooner than later. It might get worse before it gets better, but everything will eventually go back to normal. Some people are panicking. Oh, nobody's going to want to go to shows anymore. I think I've been cooped up for a week and I can't wait till my next show. It's not going to stop me. You know what I mean? It's like, I think a lot of people are going to, be really excited when they're able to start going out again. So it's just a matter of being really patient and just getting really creative. That's what we've been doing, with just ideas for the band. Let's try this or let's do this. And we've had, everybody from, Live Nation to, Hot Topic to other media outlets just being like, what can we do to help? So I'm seeing, really no real reduction in work, or things to do. Everybody is kind of coming together, and I think that's really great.
Kind of speaking to everyone coming together, it was kind of interesting. Obviously, those who are listening to this already know that I had Frank, mutual friend, on to talk about his thing, and basically he came up with this GoFundMe that is trying to help raise awareness and funds for the touring people who aren't the musicians themselves, but all the behind the scenes workers. Try to help them in their time of need. And something that I thought was interesting, and I didn't expect it, was one of those things where I look at my email while I'm at work and I see, the Nomads GoFundMe thing, and I was like, from Atom Splitter, and I was like, did you team up with Frank? And like, it was just interesting. Like, you were one of the first people aside from just friends that I know in the industry that it shared it, but like someone who was kind of putting, your work face kind of on to kind of help share it and getting it out there. And then, obviously seeing it on, I think it was PRP, and seeing it on Metal Sucks or Metal Injection and Kerrang and so forth, and starting to see it get some more notoriety and some more awareness.
Yeah, Alternative Press did an interview with Frank for it too.
Yeah. And was one of those things that I thought it was kind of interesting to see you collectively, like just kind of seeing the industry coming together to try to figure out a way to help support itself. And, you don't always see that sometimes, but I think speaks to why, especially in I'll say rock and metal and hardcore and so forth, there always seems to be this underlying sense of community or family. And it was kind of, cool to see you working with him on that. Kind of explain a little bit more on how you started working with Frank on that, and kind of your end of that kind of, or that thing.
Oh yeah, that was like just simple. Frank has tour managed bands that I work with. He was Chelsea Grin's tour manager. That's how I first met him years ago. And I remember the band had like a beef with Alternative Press, and then we had to, the band and the magazine made up, and it was a very, it was a little bit of a process, and the band went to the AP Awards, and I remember I was like, Frank, you got to get him on stage at this point too, and I think they were announcing Issues or something, Issues performance, and I was like, Frank, you got to do that. That's how we started, like, we became bros, because he was like, I'll make sure I'll take care of it. I was worried because it took a lot of time to get them. It was a lot of time and effort to get the band to do, to the award show and to participate. And ever since then, we've always stayed in touch. We always text and talk and check in. And I see him at shows if he's tour managing. Who was he tour managing last time? I don't remember. Somebody on Warped Tour. But, we've known each other for a while, and then his roommate is actually somebody who used to do interviews, and she messaged me and said, hey, Frank's doing this. I was like, oh yeah, I'll send it out. No problem. She said, yeah, Frank asked me to reach out. So I was like, yeah, of course. But, he just had to ask me to do it, and I sent it out for him because I've known him forever. Just doing a bro a favor. I mean, that's like, goes without saying. It's like a given. So it wasn't really, just because we've known each other and because he's a bro, I was happy to help him out and spread the word on something he's doing that's really helpful, because, like I always think of like Jeremy from A Day to Remember always points out to the like the security and the venue staff. He always shouts them out. People don't realize that these are people who, are doing a job behind the scenes. It's not glamorous. It's not sexy. You don't always see it. You don't always know it, but it exists. And a lot of these people are affected by what's going on now. People, whether it's the bartender, whether it's the bar back, whether it's the security guy, whether it's, somebody, the ticket person, the person who at the box office, all those people, are paid to do those jobs. And right now they're not doing those jobs. So, it's really important what Frank has done just to support the people who work on the tours is really, it's really important.
Kind of slightly differently, but still kind of very much what we're going through. As of when we're recording this on the 19th of March, Philadelphia shut down. Or I actually think it's Pennsylvania as a whole is shut down now, quarantined, correct?
I think so. I mean, I know New Jersey has been imposed. Like, I'm in New Jersey on the Jersey side, but they had like a kind of like a voluntary curfew, which most people are sticking to. But mostly everything, people are like, non-emergency. People are pretty much what you seem to, there's the bars are closed, the malls are closed. There's not much going on.
I was just say, it seems like the East Coast is actually both coasts, which is weird being here in the Midwest, because it seems like both coasts are actually actively doing things to keep people from going out and doing anything. Between literally, being on a 24-hour, lockdown or really early curfews and so forth. And here we are here I am in the Midwest, and we just kind of seem to be playing it by ear and seeing what's going to happen. And
oh God, they haven't shut like the malls and stuff there. I mean, here it's like most restaurants are takeout only. It's like I signed up for Uber Eats because of it.
Everything's takeout only, or picking something up. It's like yesterday, this sounds so stupid. I didn't even realize there's an Olive Garden next to my job, like literally across the parking lot. And I saw like 2 or 3 people unloading a shitload of boxes, and I was like, what the fuck is that over there? And then I just like happened to look up and saw the Olive Garden marquee, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was there, and I didn't think much of it. Like, it just was in my own headspace of being at work, but I don't know. I'm kind of a hermit anyway. It's like typically it's like if I'm not going to the grocery store to get something randomly or doing what I'm doing currently, it's like I don't really go out and do much other than go to shows and or go to a bar. So it's like that's the only thing that kind of sucks. Like we walked around the city the other day and Bridget was like, hey, we should grab a drink. And I go, yeah, we can't go anywhere.
Like yeah, it sucks. I mean, human beings are social. They're social. And, you know, this is not going to, like, I don't think this is going to change that in the future. I think some people might be, you know, a little bit more careful or not want to, you know, be tactile or whatever. I don't think it's going to change how I am with people, you know, or who I am as a person. I think, you know, right now we just have to get through it. You know, it sucks. And I posted this on Facebook the other day. It's a piece of advice my dad always gave me. He said, if it's temporary, when I first graduated college and my first job out of college, you know, I started on like August 3rd was my first day of work, I think, or August 11th. I just remember it was August and it was really hot. And I lived on the 3rd floor of a house, which is basically a converted attic. That was my first like apartment out of college. And I moved in August and they didn't have air conditioning. And I'm hot when it's 60 degrees out, you know? So when it's 95, you know, I was like, oh my God, this is miserable. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And my dad would always tell me, you know what? In a couple weeks, it's going to be September, the end of September, and the weather's going to be breaking, and you're going to be fine. You're going to deal with it. You just know it's temporary. You can get through it if you know it's temporary and there's an end in sight. And I think the human race has battled a lot of diseases and has survived, and I think there's a lot of medical minds working on this, and it's going to get contained and under control. But I think people just have to remember just this quarantine and the social distancing is temporary. You know, so if you know it's temporary, you can just deal with it. That's what I think can help people deal with it, just knowing that it's, you know, not permanent, or so I'd like to think.
What is something that this past week or so has taught you that maybe you hadn't realized before?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, it's you know, I personally like alone time. I have friends who hate it. I personally love it because I'm always around people, you know. So when I have alone time, I tend to be like, oh, I love it, just me or my dog, you know, or dogs. But I feel like the one thing it's just that, you know, I wanted a perfect example, you know, for my laptop, you know, MacBook, the cords, you know, they tend to fray, you know. I was like, oh, shit, I got to run to the Mac. Oh, sorry, I thought I can curse. I said, I got to run to the Mac store really quick. Yeah, I forgot it's not terrestrial. I was like, I got to run to the Mac store and just get a cord because in case I can't charge my computer, da-da-da. And I was like, wait a minute. The Mac store, the Apple store is closed. So I had to order it, you know, and I was like, oh, and I got to get it before Thursday because I have to travel. I was like, let me, you know, I was just like, the convenience of just being able to run to the mall to pick up a cord was like, oh, wow, shit, I got to do something else. You know, I got to order it. Even though it's like a small thing, it was just like, you know, I needed to get to the post office. And I was like, oh, the post office hours has changed. Or the bank, that I got to get there before 4 o'clock. So it was just a matter of like shaking up my routine. And I've been trying to get back to my routine because I've had some personal things happen. And I just wanted to get back to my routine and have my schedule around me and be comfortable in my familiar surroundings. And I can't do that right now. And that's making the other stuff that I'm dealing with a little bit harder. So, you know, that's one thing I'm learning is that sometimes you don't have a choice and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah. I just totally lost my train of thought.
I do that all the time.
It's been happening a lot lately, and I've been adopting Josh's mannerism of brain fog. And there's the other East Coast word I still say, fog.
Fog.
But it's, you know, in thinking kind of, you know, about the fact that I feel like you're probably actually going to be busier right now than maybe you would normally be, because everyone's like, well, fuck, I'm not on a tour, so I need to do something. You know, I can't be on the road to promote this album and be out in normal press outlets or whatever, or press cycles per se. So getting kind of creative maybe with the press requests and stuff like that. This isn't necessarily a press request thing, but, you know, what Code Orange did the other day and what Dropkick did 2 days ago, I think at this point, where they're doing the live stream concerts. Do you envision with some of these new, or with even one of your clients, Matt, the other day doing a live full guitar vocal playthrough of, what was it, Ascendancy?
Ascendancy, yeah.
So you're starting to see people coming up with interesting ways to, I don't want to say kill the boredom, but basically just do something to show fans, to give fans some kind of entertainment in this time of where, this pandemic we're in and so forth. Do you think that this is going to start changing some of the ways that maybe the music industry goes forward and giving you some interesting new fun ideas on how you can pitch different, publicity type things to bands and people on your roster?
Yeah, because you have to get creative. You have to kind of improvise. I don't think it's going to replace, people going to shows or touring, but I do think that might be something, if the band is only doing, A markets or primary markets, they're not doing a lot of secondary or tertiary markets on a tour, maybe they'll do something where they'll maybe live stream some more so that more fans can watch. I know that when I go to a show and I Facebook Live, some of my friends that are all over and like, oh, I can't make the show, or it's not coming to my city. They're like, oh, thanks for posting this because now I get to feel like I'm there. And I think it's what they're vibing off is oftentimes the crowd, So I think, maybe once the crowd element is back in, I think maybe bands will want to do maybe some more streams of their shows. But I think right now it's just interesting to see it in a new, in a new way, like Code Orange playing in an empty venue. That has to be really just wow. Sometimes I think you just have to tune in to see what that's like, because while you can envision it, be like, whoa, what is that like? You really kind of have to really watch it to really understand it. So I think this is a creative way for people to do something in a new way, and it's like improvisation. And I think once we see what works and what didn't, then we might be able to incorporate them into the future when bands are back out on the road.
Yeah, it was just interesting to kind of think of, if not that these are going to replace traditional avenues of, going to shows and playing them and so forth, but just the way that bands are now trying to be thinking more outside the box of what they're doing to still stay connected with fans, especially in this digital age where basically content is king. And it's one of those where, like I said, it's kind of your job to kind of help get these things done and come up with new, fresh ideas. So, I was pleasantly surprised when I woke up the other morning and I was like, oh, here's Matt Heafy doing all of Ascendancy. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't even know that was going to be a thing.
Yeah, he gets really clever with some of the stuff that he does on, his Twitch empire, as I like to call it. It's, really interesting, and he's actually doing some press around it. I mean, he's doing something with TechCrunch. He's doing something with Forbes, just about how he's managed to turn his Twitch feed into something that has made him, visible on a whole other level. He's always got good ideas that way. He's always been a creative person that way. But yeah, just some bands are really, hunkering down and coming up with ways to really stay connected with their fans. And I think some are probably more creative about it than others, but I think, we're going to see what works just through who's doing what and paying attention.
What are you most looking forward to? What band are you most looking forward to seeing once all of this blows over?
Oh, goodness. I really want to see the Killswitch and August Burns Red Light the Torch tour, because I was really looking forward to that. From the minute I heard that it was an idea, especially since, Howard Jones being on the road again with, the guys in Killswitch, just because we love, ABR so much too, and we worked with Killswitch forever, I just wanted to see them all together because it's like one big family. So I'm excited about that one when that one gets rescheduled. I'm looking forward to Trivium and Lamb of God this summer. I want to see what happens with I Prevail, because they were going to tour with Five Finger Death Punch. So, and in this moment, Black Veil Brides, all the tours that we had a lot of high profile tours that were going to happen all around the same time. So just looking forward to when they all happen around the same time in a few months.
Yeah, it was kind of surreal, because thanks to Josh from Killswitch's Tech, I was side stage basically just bullshitting with Josh most of Killswitch's set, and someone was like, oh, how was Killswitch's set? I was like, I remember it being good. I don't know. I was talking with Josh most of the night.
I love his wife, Erin. She's one of my favorite people.
And I haven't met her yet, but she seems pretty rad based on his socials and so forth.
Yeah, she's awesome.
It was funny, though, because Howard was basically sitting on the steps next to Josh's workspace watching Killswitch's set the whole time. And I was like, this is interesting. If you would have told me back in 2003 or 4, end of Heartache era, that it's oh, you're going to be standing next to Howard watching Killswitch play, End of Heartache songs, and he's just going to be standing next to you watching it, I'd be like, the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
it was just like very surreal to watch him watch the whole set until it was his turn to go out there and do Signal Fire and what was it, End of Heartache, I believe. And then interestingly enough, watching Jesse then watch Howard sing for a song.
It's very, it's sort of, it just, it's very full circle, I guess is the word I would describe it, because, it's two very different eras, two very different singers and two very different lyricists, but one very specific sound and one very specific band. So it's interesting. And that's what I was really looking forward to seeing as well. So I just have to be a little more patient.
And lastly, where can people find you and or Adam Splitter online?
Oh, pretty much you can look at my Instagram, which is Bredo777, or all of our socials are the same. It would be Adam Splitter PR. So it's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're, at our website. And you can usually find me from there pretty easily. I don't hide online. I make myself too visible.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to kind of do this with me for a little bit. And I was looking forward to Sonic Temple. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm fully hoping it does. TBD.
We can always keep our fingers crossed.
Well, thanks again, and I'm sure we'll talk to you probably in the morning.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, thanks for having me again. And like I said, if you need anything else, just let me know.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, I will talk to you tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, we tried our hardest for sure.
And it's one of those that, like, as I kind of kept thinking about it, as I kept doing each interview and the progression that I did them, I was like, I feel like that's the last part of this series of conversations that I feel like needs to kind of bookend it, where it's like, so we got everyone, and I already have a band person, but everyone pretty much is like, yeah, I knew this is kind of going on, and then, we started it, and then it got canceled right away. Whereas you guys are the ones that were like, fuck it, man, we're figuring out a way to go through this and keep going, and we're not going to stop. Like, if it's like, okay, if it's a matter of you can't have more than 500 people, like, okay, cool, we'll figure that out. Oh, now it's 200 people? All right, we're going to a VFW hall. If it's less than that, okay, like, we're figuring it out. And then it's like, no, you guys got to, like, can't be on the road now. So I was just like, man, I think that's the way that I have to end this, is reaching out to you and kind of being like, let's spend like 25 minutes or so just kind of like going through all this and kind of wrapping it up, where it's like you guys, I think, are the epitome of what everyone is already saying, which is we're not going to back down, and we're just going to keep going because it's all we know how to do in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely the least fun outside of the stage experience I've had in this band. Just because it was like, it was one of those like shitty things where, okay, well, first off, let me back up. It made it so much worse that we were on like the West Coast when everything started hitting the fan. And 3 out of 5 of us live on the far East Coast, one in the Midwest and one in California. So it was kind of just like this, oh God, we've got to get all the way back across the country thing. So that, it sucked. And it was one of those like weird things where you kind of like, you just go with the flow, and then halfway through the drive, you find out that the show's canceled, and it's like, okay, shit, what are we going to do now? Like, I was honestly finding out more info from like random people commenting on Instagram and Facebook than we had. And it was one of those things where it's like, oh fuck, somebody just said that this show's canceled. Hold on, dog. Like, that's our manager, dog. We're like, hey, what's happening? Please help. Yeah, it was just like I don't know, it sucked, but we tried our best to, one, do it because we like to play, and two, because we knew that we were going to be fucked financially. We were like, all right, well, this is what we do, so we're going to keep playing as long as we can. One, because we love it. Two, because we really need to make sure that we can survive a little bit longer,
Yeah. So I guess, with that already started, I'll do the intro now. For those that, have already been listening to the other 3 chats, because this is going to end this quadrilogy of conversations basically about the music industry and how the coronavirus has affected it. And basically, kind of as I was talking to Tom this morning or sending him a text, when I was editing everything, I just kind of realized that there's this overwhelmingly positive vibe effervescing from all of the conversations with everybody. And I just kept thinking about the Acacia Strain guys and what they went through. They were the epitome of doing it until literally being told you could not do it anymore. And was one of those things where I was like, I need to have Tom on. I need to kind of talk to him about it because, you know, where a lot of bands and a lot of tours were preemptively postponed, or in the situation of like JB from August Burns Red and that Killswitch tour, canceled basically or postponed within 2 days of starting the tour. You guys, you know, like as you just said, we're all the way out on the West Coast where this is kind of hitting first, and basically kind of just finding out you're getting stranded basically out on a completely different coast than where you needed to be. And it was really interesting to just see you guys adapt on the fly and come up with a solution, even if it was temporary for the time being, of how you were going to keep going on. So I don't necessarily have the routing in front of me, and I don't have the dates 100% off the top of my head, but I mean, at that point, you guys had already played a show or two, or were you just on your way out when all of the news of this started to break?
I think it was kind of like lingering, like just some info being fed around, but it was like not a major concern when the tour started, at least not as far as I was aware. I know like Europe and like Asia were very strongly affected by everything, but I don't think it had really started to affect the States that much. It was just kind of like hey, yeah, we know that this is going on, but there's no real reason to worry other than just being like normally cautious. So like when we started the tour, it was just like, okay, sick, we're going on tour. And then like a couple days into it, you start hearing a little more. A week into it, you hear more. And then like right at the 2-week mark is when everything like really went crazy. And it was kind of insane how quick it just like evolved. Like I think it was about 3 days between when it wasn't a big concern to, oh fuck, I think the tour is getting canceled. And then for sure, like after 5 days of it getting more and more aggressive as far as like with the media and I guess the virus itself, it was like, okay, yeah, fuck, that was a pretty quick turnaround. I guess we're going home. So it was a very, like, it started off with nothing being a concern, and then out of nowhere, it was like, holy shit, okay, this happened quick.
Kind of, you know, something that was interesting is, you know, as you were saying a couple of minutes ago, you know, you guys all live in predominantly the East Coast, with one living out in the West Coast and one here in the Midwest. Kind of walk me through kind of being in the van and, you know, seemingly kind of getting a handle on like, okay, I think we've got an ulterior plan, at least to start getting us back home with doing these VFW hall shows. You know, how were you... Is it kind of like you guys reaching out to old contacts in certain areas on the way, like going like, hey, is there any way we can get this show going? Are you working with your booking agent? Like kind of, how were you guys able to so quickly come up with these solutions to the problem of trying to get home and still play some shows?
Well, the first thing that we had to get through was the chain reaction show, like just figuring out how to play that, because so we had, I think, 2 days off. Yeah, it was 2 days off between Austin, Texas, and the chain reaction show. So we had drove like completely overnight, went to Zach from the Ghost Inside's house because he lives in Vegas. So luckily we were like at least kind of in like a comfortable, like positive atmosphere, hanging out with Zach and just kind of like fucking around Vegas. When we got like a lot of the shitty news of like, hey, I think these 3 shows are canceled. Hey, this 4th one might be canceled, but you've got to have a like hard cap on it. So the first thing was figuring out Chain, because the Chain reaction is legendary and that's one of our favorite places to play. So we were like, okay, we are not missing Chain somehow. So I think it was sold out, and then we had to break it into 2 shows because it needed to be under 250 people. So we did 2 sets that day. And that was, I think, the venue who were like, hey, let's make this work. It was kind of like, as far as that show and then us getting back home, it was kind of like a culmination of every option that you said, like reaching out to friends, the booking agent helping us. And so it was like, we knew that we were playing Chain. And then that day we kind of found out that the next 3 shows were canceled. And then it kind of became this thing of, do we go all the way up to Seattle, which was super like on the fence about having the show. And then ironically, like as we were figuring that out, I think it got canceled. So it was kind of like, okay, this is going to hell. We have to figure out a way to get back. And the day that we had played Chain, or actually, it might have been the day that we were at Zach's house. Either way, I had gotten a message from Xavier from Vamakara saying, like, hey, I have a buddy who can put on a show for you in Vegas. And it turned out that we had ended up working with him previously. Like, we had played a show at this VFW at Knock Loose, and it was fucking awesome. So we just kind of were like, yeah, whatever we could do. We had Xavier get in contact with our booking agent, who is also, I believe, Vamakara's booking agent, get in contact with the Vegas guy, and then try to route out 3 or 4 more shows to at least get us back to Des Moines so that we could drop Griffin off. And the whole time that we were doing those, like, go back home shows, we knew that it was going to be the 4-piece because we had left Devin in California just because it made the most sense. It was like, well, all this travel is super sketchy. Devin lives in California, so fuck it, we'll play as a 4-piece for a few shows. Like, it's kind of like emergency scenario. I mean, the Acacia Strain was a 4-piece for years, so it was like, all right, let's just do that. And then we ended up playing the Vegas show, which was one of the coolest experiences to me, just because it, like, kind of showed me in front of me how awesome our fans are, because we had less than 24 hours notice of even putting the show on, and 140 people came during the middle of a pandemic, and all the staff worked for free just to help us out and give us the most money. So that was like the coolest thing that could have happened. And then the next morning on the way to Colorado for the Denver show, all 3 other routing shows to get home got canceled. So we just went right from Vegas to Des Moines to drop Griffin off. And then we all like just kept going with the drive.
Kind of, I know this is kind of shitty, but it's like, you know, kind of what is, you know, you drop Griffin off in Des Moines and then you got a long ass ride home. What is the vibe in the van? What are some of the things you guys are talking about in the van on that drive?
I mean, it was such a long fucking drive that we all just lost our minds for sure. Hardcore bunk madness going on where you're all just like messing around, making weird noises. I don't know. I think we kept it as positive as we could. It's definitely a bit of a blow to morale to be like, oh, cool, this tour was 2 weeks into it and it was fucking awesome, and now we're going home and we've all got to figure out like finances and just the fact that we're not playing shows that we were looking forward to, you know? So it was, I mean, morale is definitely not at its highest point, but I think given the circumstances, we tried to keep ourselves as like in check as we could. I mean, there's always going to be more tours, so it sucks that this tour was like in the shitter, but it's not like we were worried that we'd ever tour again, you know? So just kind of dealt with it as well as we could and tried to keep our chin up, you know?
What, you know, those shows that you guys played as a 4-piece, I mean, as you said, you know, Acacia Strain started off kind of as a 4-piece and has played as a 4-piece for a while. What was it like? Because, I mean, Devin is the lead guitar player, typically, at least as far as I can recall in my head, seeing you guys live. He usually plays the lead stuff. So how was it? Well, I was going to say, like, I'm usually on Devin's side, so it's like with you guys moving, I don't see you playing as much lead as I do him, as obviously as I see him playing it.
Yeah, I'm only messing around. We split it up a pretty good amount. He does... So to go where I think you're going with that, he does most of the leads on the older stuff, like the Continent, Deadwalk era stuff. Everything from Wormwood on, I do all the leads just because it's a lot more like textural stuff. Like I don't do like shredding solos, whereas he does. But it ends up with me playing most of the leads for anything newer. And then, but for a lot like this set, we had done a lot of older stuff just because it was more of a hardcore tour. So we tried to make it be more of like older ass beaters and then whatever the newer, like the harder, newer songs, like the ones that would fit like a hardcore tour vibe more than like the doomier stuff, you know? So everything was pretty just like riff heavy for this set. So it wasn't too much of an adjustment to do the 4-piece thing. It was kind of just me memorizing some rhythms that I hadn't played in a while. But I think we only ended up cutting one song from our normal set list. And I mean, we still even played like the newer songs. And there was a few songs where like I kind of was able to work it out where I would play a lead just as the intro to the riff. And then when the breakdown fully kicks in, just stop playing the lead and go back to the rhythm. Just so it's kind of like you get a little lead reference and it's kind of in your head. And then, but it still sounds full with all of us playing the same thing, you know?
Yeah, I just didn't know, you know, I know that you're proficient with programming different stuff. Obviously, when we did our last conversation about it comes in waves and so forth, and I didn't know if maybe preemptively, like, you knew that this is going to happen. It's like, okay, let's get Devin's rhythms or Devin's leads on a track and just run a track. So at least it's there, but it's not someone playing it.
Yeah, we I don't think we would ever do that, just because that's, like, as players, we're really against that. Like, I understand bands that do it, but we're not a band that I think needs to have it. And I think part of the magic of the Acacia Strain is that we still don't play to a click or anything like that. Like, no samples, no click. We don't even have in-ears at the moment. We're actually going to be moving to in-ears soon, and that's, like, the most technology-based thing that we're going to be doing. But, yeah, we don't play to a click, so we couldn't even do that if we wanted to, like, have a track going, because there would be no click for it to sync up with. But, yeah, that wasn't really, like, a couple people asked if we would do that, and I was just like, nah, I'll just play rhythm. Like, I had a second power amp feeding to another cab on the other side of the stage, so it was still having, like, both sides of the stage with rhythm guitars, and just kind of roughed it, like, just made it be bare bones Acacia Strain, which, like, the benefit of us is that most of our leads are just atmosphere, so it's like you don't lose a ton by just playing all rhythms. There's definitely not the full-blown Acacia Strain experience, but it didn't. I don't think there was as much missing as I expected it to be.
Well, it almost sounds like one of the few bands I can kind of think of was Hatebreed. Oh, fuck. Ozfest. One of the early Ozfests. They were down to just, why am I totally like, Sean. When Sean was, like, the only guitar player, and he basically did something kind of the same. He had, like, an A-B switch, so, like, when he would do, like, the breakdowns or whatever, the same rhythm track would go and play on the other side of the stage on the cabs over there to give it that fuller sound that everyone was used to, but it was just him singularly playing, and that's actually one of the few instances I can think of in a band of this style that's actually done that before and it not been weird as far as how it sounds live.
Yeah, I wished I had, like, an ABY switch. It would have been kind of hard for me to do that just because of the, like, only having my Kemper with me. Like, if I had some pedals too, I could have done, like, an ABY with, like, another head or something. But I kind of worked around it by doing, anytime that it was, like, a part where it was just me playing before the whole band kicked in, I had made a second, like, guitar patch on my Kemper where it was lowered 7 dB in volume, so that it kind of mimicked the idea of having only one guy playing it. And then once it was like, okay, the whole band's kicking in, I would hit my normal patch and it was full volume. So it still had that little bit of, like, push and pull that you sonically have when one guitar drops out and it's just a soloed guitar, and then boom, everybody's in at once. So I couldn't do the ABY thing like Sean, but I had the closest thing that I could mock up on a couple hours notice.
Yeah. Something that was kind of interesting too in thinking about this and doing a couple of these conversations, I was trying to, put myself, following you guys in real time and following everyone now in real time, because that's the luxury, I guess, that social media has afforded us, is that we can kind of be with you 24 hours a day. As long as you're posting something somewhere, we can kind of see it and get an idea of how everyone's doing.
Yeah.
And, as I kind of have said, the overlying theme of everyone I've talked to has been kind of this odd sense of positivity in a very unnatural set of circumstances that has affected everyone, not only just, here's my job, but financially. Like, talking with JB from August Burns Red, he was like, yeah, we took 3 months off after touring real heavy the year before because we knew that this was going to be a big tour and we needed to kind of, draw as much as we could for some of these rooms. And he goes, so we had already planned to have like 3 months off, not 4, 5, 6, maybe 7.
Yeah.
And, making the comment that, the tour that they were on, that was accounting for about half of his income this year. And thinking about that, for you guys who tour so much, I'm sure this sucks, because I'm trying to remember if your tour is postponed or if you're going to make up the remaining dates that were left on the tour, because I think you had about a week and a half left or so.
We had 3 weeks, actually.
3 weeks? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Like I said, so many tours, you're just like, oh, I don't remember who had what anymore.
Yeah. I think, as far as the group positivity thing, I think that kind of just naturally comes from we're all in this shit show together, kind of like the misery loves company thing where when it all sucks, but everybody's going through it, you could kind of laugh about it a little bit and be like, oh yeah, I mean, how's your shitty day going? Oh, my shitty day sucks, but haha, we're laughing about it, you know? So I think it was a little bit of that as far as like the everybody having a positive spin on it. I think it's just, you don't feel as alone as if something were to happen where like, I don't know, one of us got sick or got hurt and we had to go home, where it would be much more like, fuck, everybody's out there doing what we're supposed to be doing and we're not. That sucks. But all of us had to go home, you know, like every single band on the planet had to go home.
Kind of speaking to that a little bit, you know, you were so far away from home and, you know, touring, as we had talked about previously with your soon-to-be wife, you know, I'm sure a lot of people worry about you as is, you know, being on the road, you know, accidents can happen and so on and so forth. But, you know, having basically a national or international level of security based on a pandemic, how was, you know, reaction from, I would assume your parents are texting you. I would assume you know, obviously your fiance is probably in contact with you. You know, was there concern for your health, staying out and trying to still play these shows, or, you know, what was that kind of like for you?
Yeah, I mean, everybody was definitely worried to some extent. I think we kind of got back before it became like the biggest possible worry. Like we thought, like it felt bad and like everybody was worrying while we were out, but I feel like it's still just like continuing to get worse, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, everybody was worried. I kind of have this thing where when something's out of my control, I kind of just don't think about it and don't worry about it because I can't do anything about it. And maybe that's naive and kind of like a stupid way to think. But a lot of the days that we were playing, I'm like, well, I'm going to play this show no matter what. And if this is a concern, I can't do anything about it because I know I'm playing the show. So it is what it is, you know? So I personally didn't have much of a worry, and maybe that's to a fault of my own because I kind of, like, I've been less social, but I still haven't, like, holed myself up 100%. Like, I haven't quarantined myself, you know? I am still in New Jersey because of the fact that my fiance wanted to see if I would see any symptoms, because we're pretty close with her dad because he lives far, like, close to us. He does not live very far from us, and just he's got some health issues, so he wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to get him sick right away, you know?
Right.
So I'm still in New Jersey, and I'm actually supposed to go back tomorrow, but because I'm kind of an idiot, I went out with a group of friends last night, and it didn't even occur to me, like, oh, the whole reason I'm here is to not be out with people as much. So I might end up staying here a few more days, but I don't know. Still kind of playing that by ear, just waiting to see. I mean, I've got to get back before the whole country's locked down, so I'm still playing that by ear. But yeah, I mean, there's worry from everybody. I guess not as much for me about myself. I don't know if that makes me dumb or not, but I was just kind of like, I can't do anything about this, so I'm gonna do my best to be like clean and not fucking cough on people or stay away from people. But yeah, I didn't go into like full freak out mode as far as like while we were playing shows, you know?
Yeah. And it was kind of interesting too, talking with JB, also a guitar player. I was like, oh, did you notice that you guys were doing anything differently in your day to day, even in prep of, you know, setting up your gear or whatever, like making sure, like, you know, an extra stagehand is coming to help you load up something. You're like, yep, no, please don't touch it. Just the sheer minimum number of people who need to touch all of our stuff is how we need to be operating currently.
Yeah, the most that I think I did personally I was like definitely washing my hands more, and like all of us had hand sanitizer that we were using all throughout the day. But it was funny. I like caught myself doing it in Texas, and I like spit water a lot. And I mean, Vincent's always like putting the mic out to people and throwing water, this and that. And I like spit water out, and I was like, wait, this is probably a bad idea for this time period. And after that, I was like, I'm not going to spit water anymore. And even at the Chain Reaction show, there was like the big horseshoe in front of us. And Vincent was like, before we started, he's like, don't worry, we're not going to spit and we're not going to be throwing water. So you guys will be more safe. So come up closer. Because I think people genuinely were like, oh, wait, these guys spit a lot, so let's not be as close as should be.
Yeah. You know, kind of as we're wrapping up, I mean, you dropped D&E. E came out basically right after you guys got home, I think anyway, based on, like I said, following on socials. It seemed like as soon as you were home, E dropped basically.
Yeah, it just dropped 2 days ago. I don't even know what day of the week is it.
Yeah, I think it was Friday. Yeah, today's Saturday.
Yeah, it dropped Friday.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks. Someone already found it. The whole thing's going to be called Devon. I already saw it.
That is my favorite guess. Absolute favorite guess.
That was pretty funny. I think at this point, you guys should run with a line of shirts for Devon, or have him make those a guitar pick or something.
Oh, dude, yeah, I would love for that. I would wear that shit daily. Just Devon's face on.
Maybe it'll. So, I mean, last time we talked, It Comes in Waves was just out. We did a pre and post of that record dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at this point, like I said, you basically have where I'm from. You have Delaware, D&E, that are out now. And again, it seems like the reaction is pretty overwhelmingly positive. And an interesting way that you've been dropping whatever this series is going to be. So how have you enjoyed the reaction to that? And have you been playing anything, the 4 songs that you have out from these? Have you been playing any of those live at this point?
Yeah, we were doing both songs off of D. We did Seeing God and Feed a Pigeon on the tour before, obviously, we had to go home. I think the plan was to take maybe one of the D songs out of the set list and put one of the E ones into it. But I mean, obviously we didn't get a chance to do that. But yeah, the reaction has been pretty overwhelmingly positive, and it makes me very happy. I think it was, I don't know. I have a lot of personal connection to both of these records, just because it's like It Comes in Waves and this were my first contributions as a writer, and I did a lot on both. So for me to just think back to the writing process of some of these tunes and being like, fuck, I think these are sick, but you never know what people are going to think. And to see them being enjoyed, the coolest thing was when I'm rambling now, but when we were in Long Island, the second day of the tour, which was literally 2 days after D was put out, we were playing Feed a Pigeon and having the whole venue doing the chanting, It Feels Like Hell. And that was a song that I wrote. So I was just like, holy shit. This is a day and a half old, and everybody here is singing along with a new song from a band that's been around forever, which is very hard to have a positive reaction live for new stuff for an old band. But yeah, it's been fucking awesome, and I'm really happy to keep putting more things out whenever that may happen and whatever the record may spell out.
In this downtime, I mean, with as much content as it seems like and as much writing as the band has been doing in such a short amount of time, do you envision that you're going to start working on something else for a future whatever, and just utilize the time you have? Or is this time basically going to be crunch time for wedding stuff, I guess, now that you're home to plan it?
We have most of the wedding stuff planned out. Almost the entire thing has deposits on everything, so that's pretty easy for us at the moment. But yeah, I'm taking this downtime to make a tab book for It Comes in Waves, which I'm almost done with, and I'm going to do one for the upcoming release too. And yeah, other than that, I mean, I'm definitely going to I have a ton of ideas for the next Acacia Strain thing, which is awesome because the current one is not even fully out, but I've got that. I'm going to try and get a couple new Phantom Pain songs in the works so that we could put out a couple of new songs, because it's been 3 years since we put out our demo, even though it's just a fun thing. I want to put that out. I have a band with some of the guys from Joy. I don't know if you know that band. They're a band from North Carolina, and they're all good friends of mine. Just a rock band that we're doing. And then me, Griffin, Mike, and Taylor from Chamber, and then Zach from Left Behind have a little super group that everybody keeps calling it in the works that we're making. So we get to write for that, which I'm really excited to do.
And I couldn't help but see everyone shitting on the dude from Trapped.
That's
these last few days.
It's my new. I love Public Meltdown so much. It's a terrible thing to enjoy watching people just losing it, but I do, and I am fully there for the Trapped Meltdown.
I think what was funny is Matt Dice. Right before I called you, his like top 5 breakdowns. One was like Meshuggah, New Millennium, Cyanide Christ, Dillinger Escape Plan, 43% burnt, Acacia Strain, Hills Have Eyes, and he goes Trapped, the Twitter thing or whatever of 2020, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's so funny.
I love that. I love Matt too. He's the man. So it makes me even happier that he's the one who said that. This is where I always have, plug socials and so forth, but, what is this past week or so, taught you that maybe you've taken away and learned, that you hadn't really been aware of previously before we have you do that? On a surface level, it taught me that I can actually use Guitar Pro very well to tab out records. That's just like the surface level thing. I don't know. I think it's honestly taught me that I should probably take some of this more seriously than I have. Because for the longest time, I was like, wow, this is really blown out of proportion. And then within the past couple of days, I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I should actually care about what's happening in the world and focus a little more on social distancing than I was. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask about my seriousness level, but I learned that I should take it more serious over the past couple of days.
I think we've all kind of come to that conclusion, I think.
Yeah.
And where can everyone find you and the band online?
The band at the Acacia Strain on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And my personal Twitter is at tsmith_WAV. And my Instagram is tsmith678.
And want to say thanks, seemingly like always, for doing this so last minute. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing you gave me your number a while ago to where I can just be like, hey, I have this idea, let's do this.
Oh, I don't mind at all. I enjoy our chats.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see you guys soonish. Looking forward to seeing what the rest of this series of 7 inches or whatever is going to be. I know that you seemingly have a good time of picking them up when they're released because I can at least afford to buy them at $7 a pop. I actually just got my It Comes in Waves vinyl in the mail the other day, so I think I only have to wait another 3 months before I get these 7 inches.
Dude, okay, so one quick sidebar on that. It's so funny that you say that with like you just got your It Comes in Waves when everything else is dropping. At one point, we had so much shit to post that we knew was coming out that I got overwhelmed and I just didn't post any of it. Like literally this week, it was like, oh, okay, we have all these things for like the online merch sale from the tour, and then we have this new merch dropping, and we've got the second pressing of It Comes in Waves and that whole bundle. And then I knew that E was coming out, and we had a bunch of shit for that. And I was just like, my emails were going crazy. Our group chat was going crazy. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to post any of it. I'm going to fuck something up. So I'm just not going to post anything. But I appreciate everybody who's been buying the shit out of stuff and supporting us. So it's going to help for sure make the tour getting canceled a bit lighter on all of us. And it'll definitely be beneficial. So I can't thank everybody who's ordered merch or sent us things more. It was okay, that's something I learned. I learned that our fans are actually really, really sick. Like, I knew that our fans were cool, but they actually care about us and believe in us as people past just the band. So that's a good lesson that I learned.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, and we'll hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you.